Three things happen when you upload a document to ChatGPT. Most people only notice one, and the one they miss, the third one specifically, is the reason some professionals are saving 2.5 hours a day while everyone else saves 40 minutes. I'll show you exactly what that is. But first, the obvious thing is that ChatGPT reads your file. You see a response. You think, great, it worked. Here's what most people believe. That's the whole capability. Here's what's actually true. That's roughly 20% of what's available to you. The other two things, the ones almost no one is using deliberately, are where you're either bleeding time or leaving serious leverage on the table. And I want to be specific about something before we go further. This isn't about learning a new tool. You already have the tool. This is about understanding what's actually happening when you use it, because right now, most professionals are operating on a mental model that's flatly wrong. I'll show you where that model breaks, and when it does, it tends to break hard. Here's where this gets real. A consultant I know, smart, experienced, runs a small firm, spent 2 hours last month manually pulling key points out of a 40-page client report so she could draft a proposal. She uploaded the report to ChatGPT afterward, almost as an afterthought, and it summarized the critical findings in 90 seconds. She said, and I'm quoting, "I thought uploading it was just for simple questions." That assumption cost her 2 hours. Stop. Think about what you've uploaded in the last month. How many of those sessions ended after the first response? Because here's the part that should bother you more than the 2 lost hours. She still didn't know what she'd missed. She saw one of the 3 things. She got a summary. She moved on. Something else was possible. Something that would have changed how she worked for every client after that. And she walked right past it. I'll come back to what she does now. It's worth waiting for. So let's name all 3. The first thing that happens when you upload a document is the obvious one. ChatGPT reads it and can answer questions about it. Summarize this. Find the key numbers. What's the main argument? That's genuinely useful. That's the 20% most people are using. The second thing is less obvious. Here's what people think is happening. They've given ChatGPT a document to read. Here's what's actually available. You've given it a frame. And you can use that frame to generate new things, not just extract existing things. This is the difference between asking, "What does this report say?" and asking, based on this report, write me the 3 talking points I need for a board presentation where the audience is skeptical of the findings. Same document. Completely different output. One retrieves. The other creates, inside your context, in your voice, for your specific situation. A project manager at a mid-sized logistics company started using this for meeting prep. Every Monday, she uploads the previous week's status report and asks ChatGPT to draft the questions she should be asking in that morning's stand-up, specifically the questions that address the gaps between what was planned and what actually happened. Her words, she went from spending 30 minutes prepping for a 15-minute meeting to spending 5 minutes. The meeting got sharper. The prep got shorter. That's the second thing. That alone changes how most people work. But it's still not the thing that breaks people's mental model. The third thing is different in kind, not just degree. And once you see it, you'll understand why the professionals at the top of that productivity gap are so far ahead. The third thing is where almost everyone's understanding stops cold, and where the real leverage is. When you upload a document to ChatGPT, you're not just feeding it information, you're establishing a reasoning anchor. And you can stack anchors. What that does to the quality of your output is something most AI courses will not tell you, and I think it's the single most underexplained capability in mainstream AI content right now. Here's exactly what that means. Say you're a marketing manager preparing a campaign. You upload your company's brand guidelines. Then you upload the client brief. Then you upload a competitor analysis report. Now you ask, draft 3 campaign concepts that fit our brand voice, directly address the client's stated goals, and deliberately avoid the positioning our 2 main competitors are already using. Here's what most people imagine is happening. ChatGPT reads the files in sequence, like a person skimming 3 tabs. Here's what's actually happening. It synthesizes across all 3 simultaneously, holding your constraints, your client's needs, and the competitive landscape in tension at the same time, and produces output that reflects all of it. That is not something a search engine does. That is not something a junior analyst does in 10 minutes. And here's the thing that most AI content gets wrong about this. Most courses will tell you ChatGPT can handle multiple files. What they won't tell you is that the quality of what you get out is almost entirely determined by how deliberately you set up those anchors before you asked your question. The version of this that actually hurts professionals isn't garbage in, garbage out. It's vague context in, generic output out. And generic output is worse than no output, because it looks finished when it isn't. A Stanford study on knowledge workers found that professionals using AI tools saved an average of 1.3 hours per day. But the top quartile saved 2.6 hours. Same tools. Read that again. Same tools, double the savings. The difference wasn't which AI they used. It was how precisely they framed their inputs. That gap is almost entirely explained by whether people understood the third thing. Which brings me to the reframe. Because there's a deeper problem underneath all of this that explains why most professionals, even smart ones, keep getting generic output. That's next. Here's where I want to reframe everything I just told you. Here's what most professionals think the constraint is. Does ChatGPT understand my document well enough? Here's what the constraint actually is. Have you been precise enough about what role you need it to play relative to that document? Summarizer, generator, comparator, devil's advocate, ghostwriter. Each one of those is fully available right now in the tool you already have. None of them activate unless you ask specifically. That's not a limitation of the AI. That's a limitation of the prompt. The professionals getting that 2.6-hour daily return aren't treating ChatGPT like a search engine. They're treating it like a thinking partner who has read everything you've given them and is waiting for a precise assignment. The question isn't, what does this document say? The question is, given this document, what do I need you to be right now? That consultant who spent 2 hours pulling key points, her problem wasn't that she didn't know about file uploads. Her problem was that she didn't have a mental model for what to ask once the file was uploaded. She optimized the upload. She left the reasoning on the table. What she does now is something I promised I'd come back to. Hold that. It's in the close, and it's the best example I have of what a real workflow shift looks like. So here's the practical takeaway. 3 prompts you can use this week. For the first thing, retrieval. The upgrade is specificity. Don't ask, summarize this. Ask, summarize this for a non-technical executive who needs to make a budget decision by Friday. Same document. The specificity of the audience and the decision changes everything about the output. For the second thing, generation. Add a destination. Based on this document, write me X for audience Y in format Z. Every word of that construction matters. The document is the context. The destination is the work. For the third thing, stacked reasoning, give it 2 or more documents and a judgment call. Here is our current process doc, and here is the client complaint log from last quarter. Identify the 3 process steps most likely responsible for the complaints and suggest 1 change for each. That single prompt, on its own, replaces an afternoon of analysis. add a third document, a competitor's process overview, a regulatory guideline, a budget constraint, and the output sharpens again. That's the compounding effect of stacking anchors deliberately. None of this requires a technical background. It requires being deliberate. That's it. We opened with 3 things that happen when you upload a document. Let's close them. 1. Retrieval. Most people get this, and it's genuinely useful at about 20% of the available value. 2. Generation inside your context. Far fewer people use this, and it's where your output starts sounding like you instead of a generic AI response. 3. Stacked reasoning across multiple documents. Almost no one is doing this consistently, and it's where the serious time savings and the genuinely surprising outputs live. Now, that consultant. I promised I'd come back to her. She now starts every single client engagement by uploading the brief and asking ChatGPT what questions she should have asked before signing the contract. She told me last week, it's changed how she scopes projects, not how she summarizes documents, how she scopes projects. That's not a tooltip. That's a workflow shift. There's a difference, and most AI content conflates the two. If you only take one thing from this, next time you open a document to prep for anything, a meeting, a proposal, a difficult conversation, upload it first before you do a single minute of manual work. The 2 hours you don't spend doing it the old way are already available to you. You just have to claim them. Next video, I'm going to show you what happens when ChatGPT gets a document wrong, and specifically how to catch it before it costs you. Because the confidence of the output has almost no correlation with its accuracy. That's not a minor caveat. It's a structural problem with how most people are using this, and it's worth a full video. That's next. If this was useful, subscribe. There's more like it coming.